Starting.
And we're back! Go ahead.
Hey, this is Chris, the tech guy on the show.
He's not good at his job.
So prior to this we had done a full 40-minute podcast. However, it only saved about 8 minutes of it. So 8 minutes of it that we recently uploaded as well. So we're gonna upload that, keep it there. We're gonna try and pick up where we left off after that 8-minute cutoff and see where it goes from there.
Hit the like.
It was a good 40 minutes. You guys all lost out. So we're going to pick up where we left off. Apologize, but we really wanted the content. Really was beyond our control. We're not good at this yet, but we're getting better. We do have the best tech in the business, but, he has to check in with his parole officer. And Penny has a lot of things that she needs done. So where did we leave off, guys?
Number 2.
Yeah, we did.
Sorry. So we were talking about our...
Do you still have your notes?
I think I lost them somewhere, but I still remember most of it.
He's the fucking technique. Go ahead. I said the pad.
We're winging it here.
Yeah, go ahead. Well, hopefully. Yeah.
So we were talking about on the album or bands that influenced our taste in rock and roll. The second one on my list was Nirvana.
Yeah.
Nirvana was the band I started listening to when I was in middle school, like 13 years old, maybe 12. And when I started listening to them, that was kind of like my first introduction to my dad's discography of music, which had a lot of punk rock in it. This got me into bands like the Pistols, the Descendants, Subhumans, the Ramones.
All those bands.
So many different punk bands that like I would not have listened to if I had Nirvana not been the starting point for me.
Which is like the central theme of what we're trying to do is that Nirvana like kind of I guess the word, and I think one of you used it earlier in our failed attempt because we are failures. I thought it was just him. Springboard.
Yeah.
Nirvana is a springboard for you for, what did you say, Subhumans and what else? The
Ramones, the Pistols, the Ramones, just all kinds of punk bands that my dad was into when he was younger that I probably would not have ever heard had Nirvana not started it.
I forgot whose dad was. Yeah, that's awesome. And so, so we're trying to do this again on the scratch here. 3 songs just to keep it going here, and then because I want to revisit this theme because this was an important theme for me as well.
So one of them, the first one was About a Girl, which...
Yeah, we were talking about that.
Yeah, which you mentioned was...
Incesticide.
Off the album Incesticide, and that was, as Kurt Cobain described, the closest Nirvana got to the Beatles.
Yeah, he said that was the closest thing to a Beatles song he ever wrote.
Yeah, and just from the instrumentation alone, it makes me listen to the song through a new lens. As far as the second one I would say something like Drain You off of Nevermind. It was a very...
to another said, I'm glad to have met you. Sorry.
The band just goes off on that one between, Kurt Cobain's guitar work, Chris on the bass, and Dave Grohl, of course, on the drums. Seeing that song on live videos. Dave Grohl, who's that?
Yeah.
Seeing the live videos of those of the performances of that song, you see just how tight the band is.
Yeah, and that's what they were. And they brought in Pat Smear as an extra guitarist towards the end. Yeah, but it was the 3 of them, and that's what I was saying earlier. And it's going to go back to because we really kind of screwed the pooch on this one, but you got this Nirvana, like Chris kind of pooched that one from me because that was really when I was 13. When I literally was 13, they were the biggest thing. They were the biggest band on earth. Mm-hmm. Like when I was in middle school, it was Nirvana. Like even the kids that listen to hip hop and other genres, they knew who Nirvana was. They knew what was happening, and this is kind of like where we're going with this podcast is that it's how you kind of dive into music and it takes you somewhere. Is that like later on in life, I when I kind of like did a little deep Dive on the band, it's like Chris Kurt Cobain kind of grew up together, went to high school, and they looked for a drummer. And I think they had 10 drummers before they found Dave Grohl. Dave Grohl is actually from DC. He's not from Seattle.
Formerly in the band Scream.
Yeah, look at this guy. But they auditioned so many drummers, but this fool swang harder than anybody. And then they found the vibe that they wanted with those guys, and the three of them just said, "Hey, we're gonna do this." They brought in Pat Smear for live music. They didn't really bring him for recording purposes.
Yeah.
And they had this thing that it was such a huge deal for me, like growing up, and then when Kurt Cobain passed away, it was such a big deal. And what a lot of people don't remember, something that I forgot to say earlier, is that the Unplugged in New York happened. They released it after Kurt Cobain had passed away, and I was a freshman in high school. I was 74 years old, and it was a big deal. I mean, like everybody had, like I didn't have enough money because I was lazy. But everybody, in my school had that CD, and it was a big deal to have the CD of Unplugged in New York.
Yeah.
And the first song that they play is About a Girl. Boom, 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 boom. And I think acoustically, you see more what a Beatles song that is.
Yeah.
I need an easy friend. It's very John Lennon. Yeah. And Christopher posted that one from me because that was like, I literally had this written down, and now I have God damn it, he's already in trouble. Now I got to talk to my manager again, and God, I said I was going to put in a good word for you. Now I don't know if I am. But he took that one from me. But it's such a great pick. All joking aside, what a great pick. And yeah, because like you said, and I guess a term I didn't use, so this almost might be better. Diving down that rabbit hole of the music and what it is and what it means to you, and because really that's the one thing I'll say. Music means what it means to you. What it means to me is not what it means to you or you.
Yeah.
What it means to you is not what it means to me. And that's what's beautiful about music, man. And that's what's great. It can be positive and it could be negative, but it could be mostly just, fulfilling.
Yeah.
And yeah, man. But I really was a kid when that all happened. And then when he passed away, it was like,
it was a big deal.
Yeah. I remember that. And then when River Phoenix passed away, that was the two things I remember when I was a teenager. Mm-hmm. Nobody cares about that guy anymore. Should have done a better job acting. All right, so am I next?
I guess you are. So. Yeah.
All right. So, because this guy screwed everything I wrote down.
Sorry.
No, he's not. He's not sorry, guys. He's pointing at me. No. To be truthful, I was gonna go this way anyways. I'm gonna pick the Doors. And this comes back to this certain man I grew up with.
Can't say his name though.
Yeah, I can't say his name. It rhymes with bro. When I can't get out. I can't get around. I can't get around this one. No, my older brother. My brother Jit. Well, he's my older brother.
You did it again.
Well, what the fuck? He talks about he was in Zacatecas in the early 90s, or I don't know. And they were rained in, and because it was raining really hard, and they were just listening to radio, and LA Woman came on, and he fell in love with that song, and so he just started to listen to the Doors. And then I think it was like 3 or 4 years later when the movie came out, the Val Kilmer, Oliver Stone movie, and then my brother became a hardcore Doors fan, and I was such a fan of my brother that I became a hardcore Doors fan, and being who I am, I just delved into the music, delved into the literature. I bought his poetry books. I still have them. I bought every album. I listened to everything that they did. I read everything that was written about them, and just fell in love with it. And like early on, it was like the mystique of Jim Morrison was really exciting to me. But as I got older, and this is something we were describing earlier, is that you start to realize that they were just four really great musicians. Like Morrison had a really good vocal.
Yeah.
People think of him as a wild man. By the way, he's not a very great person, but the other three guys, like, very unique in their own way. You had a flamenco style guitarist in Robbie Krieger. Robbie Krieger's one of a kind. There's nobody can really do his style. There's nobody you can compare him to. Robbie Krieger sounds like this, or so and so sounds like Robbie Krieger. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
John Densmore was a great drummer, powerful drummer. We were talking about this earlier. jazz-oriented drummer, but also he had power because apparently he did yoga when he was younger. And so he has real strong wrists, so he could really pound on the drums when he had to. Mm-hmm. But he had that finesse, like Chris was talking about, that jazz technique.
Yeah.
The hidden hero, Ray Manzarek. Ray Manzarek, man. Ray Manzarek is something that I think he's probably the best kept secret in rock and roll. Mm-hmm. I don't think he gets nearly enough credit for what he did. Mm-hmm. Because what is that band without him?
Between the synth and because they didn't have a bass player, so it was him on the synth and the bass.
Tell the story about the bass.
What bass?
This was your chance to shine. So there was no bass player.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so they didn't have a bass player, so they went to a regular store and just picked up an amp. So there's the bass.
So then they had a nephew that disappointed them in the podcast. So they did this. They went to a pawn shop and they bought a Fender bass keyboard, like a really small keyboard. And so what Ray did was he put it on top of his organ and his Hammond organ, and he would play the bass with his left hand, the bass keys, and then he would play with his right hand. And then he never had a nephew named Mariano that made him look stupid. You talk the microphone. But he also wrote these melodies, this melodic stuff. What can you think of "Light My Fire" without? Can you think of "Riders on a Storm"? And there's so many other things that there's are not really viable songs without Ray Manzarek, and all those guys, every one of those guys is valuable. I'm saying I think Ray Manzarek doesn't get enough credit for being what he was in rock and roll. I'm not saying for that band. In rock and roll history. He's the Ringo. These guys all love Ringo. I fucking hate him. I'm just kidding. I love you, Ringo. Listen to my podcast. All right, you're up. Failure.
So number 3 for me was Foo Fighters. Dave Grohl. I think.
My just lost interest.
No, it's just. I just forgot how I started off the last time.
Oh, don't do it. Don't start off. Do it all over again. This is what we're doing.
Yeah, so number 3 for me was Foo Fighters.
How old were you the first time? I think you said you were 8.
I was young. I like 8 or 9, watching the other guys when when My Hero pops on, and just it was my mom's ringtone for the longest time.
Which we were laughing about was like the funniest things we've ever done. This was The Rock and Sam Jackson.
Yeah.
There goes my
into the bushes.
That's
oh man,
sad.
yeah, but that's what introduced me to them.
And that's what's funny is that Dave Grohl is kind of a part of every conversation we've had so far.
Yeah, that just goes to show how much how part of rock he is.
I called him the patron saint of rock and roll a couple days ago. Yeah, I mean, I was telling these kids, they didn't. You guys are kids, but I was telling them that they didn't know that he was drumming for Tom Petty at one point, and Tom Petty actually offered him a gig full time. Like, hey man, you can be my drummer, and he was like, nah, I got to do my own thing. He played for
Queens of Stone Age.
Queens of Stone Age. He drummed for them, and he worked with everybody. And that guy is just honestly, he is really a real ambassador for rock and roll.
Yeah, definitely.
And for a guy, that I wasn't really all that keen on, he's so awesome, man. He's great. And I was telling these guys, I wasn't really keen on his music early on. I've totally come around full circle, and I think he's awesome. So let's get your 3 songs.
So my number 1 is My Hero, right?
Yeah, which is me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to the songs.
That's the music video that was really well too.
So after him being, idolizing me, then what?
Then it's gonna be Learn to Fly.
Oh yeah,
I really like Learn to Fly.
I kind of like that song.
And then Best of You.
That song gets on my nerves. But
really? I feel like a lot of the songs I've chosen.
What is the common theme about why?
It's just because it's overplayed.
Yeah, it's always on the radio. Like those are good songs. Every one of those songs are good. And I apologize.
No.
I wasn't trivializing your picks, but it was just kind of like it is another man. All right, I mean this is Smokey Robinson. But here's what I was telling them is a song I picked, earlier before everything got blotched. And by the way, the tech is on top of it because if not, the ankle monitor goes off.
100%.
Monkey Wrench.
Going back to one time.
Monkey Wrench. Monkey Wrench.
Yeah.
Don't wanna be your monkey wrench. I love the energy that it just, and that's a thing. And Christopher's seen him live, right? Yeah.
I saw them live back when Dave Grohl had broken his leg, and he comes out on stage.
I wonder why he broke his leg and Christopher happened to be there. Yeah.
So when he goes on stage, he does.
Maybe he owed some money,
He doesn't just go on stage like on a wheelchair or anything. He goes on stage on a full throne, just that was just.
Somebody lent him that throne,
really?
Like Iggy Pop or somebody. I don't remember who.
I would not be surprised if it was.
It was a famous guy gave him the throne.
Yeah,
gave him the throne. Because he broke his leg and he finished the show.
Yeah, he fell off the stage, got carried away in the ambulance, came back, finished the show.
Yeah,
and then when he was like recovered enough to start playing again, he just continued the tour just on the chair or on the.
That's a bad motherfucker.
Awesome,
wheelchair, yeah.
So for those of you that don't know me well, and you should, Ralph Garman is my personal Lord and Savior. He is actually good friends with Dave Grohl, and because his kids go to school at the same school that Dave's kids go, and he goes, the guy's over caffeinated, but he says he's like the nicest guy, super energetic, super positive, super happy, always glad, always good, and he actually wants to put him on his podcast, but he never has time because he's always doing 10 things. But from what I've heard, Dave Grohl is like the nicest guy, like
literally,
yeah.
And so, I didn't really catch on quick to the Foo Fighters, but having spent some time listening to them, they're pretty bad motherfuckers, man. But Monkey Wrench is I love that song. That's a song that, like I was saying earlier, if I'm driving 60 and that song comes on, I'm going 72 and I don't even know it because that song just pumps me up, man. It's a good song.
Yeah.
So, all right, where are we at now?
We're on
Kid.
I guess that would be me for album or band number 3.
One of those.
I was gonna pick. I was originally going to pick Queens of the Stone Age because they did have a pretty big effect on my music influence. But I think the one I ended up replacing it with was the Talking Heads because even though I only recently got into them like a year or two ago, that's a band that I more or less like found on my own devices rather than just a band that I had learned to like from my family or from my friends.
Which is the point of this conversation.
Yeah.
Go on.
Where the music taste or where your music interest springs from, instead of everybody's influenced by their peers. Everybody's influenced by the people around them on what kind of music they listen to. But the bands you discover on your own, the music you get into on your own time, that's the kind of thing that I think kind of helps. It kind of makes your music taste unique to you. And as he mentioned earlier, that music means different things to everybody. The Talking Heads sort of helped push me in a different direction than the things I normally listen to prior. When I think of rock and roll, when I think of like rock and roll, it's like normally I think of like the loud guitars, the rebellious attitude, but here come the Talking Heads with like, it's like if you took a Broadway performance and then gave it an electric guitar and an amplifier, and it's fascinating. Everything from their music videos to just every individual song to their live concerts is very much a performance art.
That's awesome. That's like one of the things that I've heard a lot about them. That it's just it's an experience.
Yeah,
listening, watching, it's an experience being there.
And like David Byrne is very much like a driving force behind the band, but as much like of an influence that he does have, the musicians that he brings onto the stage and just in the band in general, they're amazing. The bass guitarist Tina Weymouth is really good because considering she's self-taught, she never took formal lessons.
Oh, for real?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
David Byrne more or less tried to teach her guitar, but she more or less had to do the rest of it on her own.
Oh wow!
Yeah, her husband and the drummer, his name was Peter, and I forget his last name, and I feel bad. The drummer, Peter Griffin. the drummer's really good too because he's also like he also sings on a few of the songs and also co-founded the Tom Tom Club alongside his wife. So
Oh, really?
yeah,
That's them?
that's them. What you
Oh.
gonna do when you get out of jail? I'm gonna have some fun. That
I
one.
didn't know that.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
them too.
wow.
They on the Talking Heads live concert, Stop Making Sense. They actually David Byrne stepped away to do a costume change for a song when they and left Tina Weymouth and I believe Peter Framps was his name.
Mm.
They left them to play the song from the Tom Tom Club. What's the name?
Genius of Love.
Genius of Love. Yes.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
There
Yeah.
you go.
It was and that concert, by the way, Stop Making Sense. I recommend if you're interested in the Talking Heads at all, that is a good starting point. Either just listening to the album because it has been released in album form, or watching the video, which I think is on YouTube and probably on a streaming service. I think Amazon has it.
So what I was telling Christopher that made this unique to me because he was going in one direction and then he just completely threw a curveball, which is why we're doing this. This is why we're thinking aloud. Is that there's a moving parts to this band. Like, there's so many things going on in this band. It's so entirely different than like a combo.
Mhm.
It's with a bass, a drum, a lead, and a rhythm and a lead. There's like so many things going on with this band, and it's entirely different than what everything that you and I, that my dad and I picked, and then even yourself picked. And I was like really, really pleased that he did that. Christopher, like it's kind of like what we did earlier when we were doing a Beatles songs. Christopher picked songs
Out of the box.
off the reservoir, and I think that's great. I fucking love that. I really do. And it's a good pick too. It's a really great band, man. And did you know that when they did the Hall of Fame speech, they brought in the guy that founded CBGBs?
Really?
Yeah, you should look that up. In fact, I'll send it to you later.
Because if I remember correctly, they got their start there.
Yeah, no, that's the guy. I can't remember his name right now. But the Ramones, Blondie,
Susie and the Banshees.
There was a band called Television.
Mm-hmm.
Way to ruin things.
Sorry.
So many bands that got their start there, and apparently those when they were like broke and had nowhere to eat, he would bring them on and put them on stage, and so when they went to it's a really great thing. Awesome. I can't remember his name, by the way, and it's really easy. It's not gonna happen. It's a Hilly Crystal. Pull that one out of his ass, His name was Hilly Crystal. Honestly.
Hilly Crystal. Huh.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you that when I get home. After I'm done filling out the fucking paperwork.
It took a lot to get me. It took a lot to get me back on the podcast.
That was a great pick, though. I really love that because it's really different than everything we've done, and it ruined everything for me. So that's great. So you already picked your songs, or?
As for the 3 songs, I would say their live version of Once in a Lifetime, because even though the focus is very much on David Byrne's, vocal performance, the rest of the musicians are just like such a driving force behind the band. So many moving parts at once, just combining into making one great song. They also had another song called "Girlfriend Is Better," which is just very like. The song, I would say, has such like a paranoid kind of vibe to it, and that's kind of why I like it so much. Is that it's very much like a dramatic theatery kind of song. The last one,
and that's what we were talking about earlier. Again, before we got
cut
sabotaged.
Off. Yeah.
I thought it was you, but now I'm starting to think there's another one. I think my dad he conveniently leaves the room, and suddenly everything's sabotaged. Performance art.
Performance
art. But in musical form. Well, I mean, performance art is musical. But it was theater and music blending
together. Yeah.
Yeah.
As for the last one, I'm going to say "Burning Down the House." It's just very much just a very fun song, to the point that was it "Burning Down"? Life During Wartime. Sorry, Life During Wartime is a song I'm thinking of because it's such a song that's so high energy, but also it's so very like topical. In the time it mentions the various political events that were going on at the time it was written. But it's so high energy that during the live performance of it, David Byrne actually goes to take a jog around the entire stage during the solo. Not even kidding. He takes a lap
That's like
around
a Steve Martin type thing.
Yeah, literally.
He takes a lap, then runs in from back on stage to get back to the mic in time for the next song.
That's awesome.
That's pretty dope.
Great. I love that. It's a great pick, Christopher. Really, really great pick.
Thank you.
So, all right. So, before we ruin it again, I guess we'll close out with 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, inspired by Christopher, and then hampered by Mariano. No, I'm kidding. You guys are great. This is awesome. The technology failed us as usual, and with the professor here, you can't really blame me this time. He stole Nirvana from me, but also he inspired me to go off the cuff. And so here we're going to do this, and we're going to pretend we're doing this all over again. But I picked for my number 3, and it's not going to be a surprise to some of you, but I'm going to go with Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
And the reason being is that we're talking about this musical evolution, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not really like,
the first songs we ever heard.
Yeah, it's where we went and where it took us. And so I was 20 years old when I really fell in love with Elvis Presley. And I tell these guys, it was this epic movie called Ben-Hur. No, wait, no. It was Look Who's Talking. Pause. Take your time. So we had another technical difficulty. So I'm going to start over again briefly. Elvis Presley is who I picked for my third influence. Kind of going with what Chris was saying, is it's something that it really wasn't what I was going to pick. By the way, it wasn't written on my list, but somebody I really fell in love with his music later on in my life. I was in my 20s, and you know, it's funny because I was in Mexico and I saw this movie called Look Who's Talking To. And there's a scene where they play Are You Lonesome Tonight? Kirstie Alley's like, it's like a cut scene. And then I just couldn't get that song out of my head. And so I just got this desire to listen to that song. I was singing it while I was at work, and everybody's like, what the hell's wrong with you? And I just couldn't get it out of my head, so I bought a CD, and I was listening to it, and I fell in love with his music more and more. I bought a second CD because I wanted to hear the song Love Me Tender. And that one, track 7, I still remember to this day, was track 7, was Love Me. Not Love Me Tender, but Love Me. I heard that song and I was hooked. And I fell in love with the music and the entity of what is Elvis Presley. I started collecting everything he ever did. His CDs, his albums, I should say. His movies, everything that you could think Elvis. I was just absolutely, I was enraptured by what is Elvis Presley. And like Christopher was talking about, I was already older I mean, not older, but, you know, I was already kind of firm in my musical beliefs, and Elvis came and tipped the boat over. And the reason what we're talking about, what Christopher said earlier, is that because of Elvis, I loved Johnny Cash, and then I loved Buddy Holly, and then I loved Hank Williams, and then I fell back in love with Linda Ronstadt, and it just led me to another whole other genre of music, to many artists that I didn't know even existed prior to Elvis. And that's kind of the crux of the argument here, right? That's kind of where we're going, is that these you know, almost like a trip. I tripped and fell into Elvis, and then that made me fall in love with these other, you know, genres that I never cared about country music. I actually still kind of don't, but but the older country music, I know names that I didn't know before because of Elvis Presley. I know who Scotty Moore is. I know who Bill Black is. I know, you know, I know